The world of Harry Potter, a universe so beloved and cherished that started with a couple of books, has since developed into one of the biggest fandoms of all time. And with that came the acclaimed movies, but also a handful of video games. Actually, more than a handful. From movie tie-in games to cheap cash grabs, all the way up to full-blown open-world experiences with original stories, I just so happen to have played and ranked every single Harry Potter game out there. I gave one game the S+ ranking and deemed the best in the franchise, and another the F- to be crowned the worst. That being said, go ahead and comment your favorite and least favorite Harry Potter game as we get started.
Wingardium Leviosa.
To coincide with the release of the Sorcerer's Stone movie, LEGO decided to get their mitts on the Harry Potter IP and capitalize on the sure craze that would follow, and in turn gave us the first Harry Potter game, being LEGO Creator Harry Potter. LEGO Creator was an original game that let the player use their imagination in a digital sandbox using Legos that got a few sequels, one of which being LEGO Creator Harry Potter and LEGO Creator Harry Potter Chamber of Secrets, which will both be talked about here. As you can guess, this game follows its predecessors in letting you do whatever you want with whatever which Legos, this time being themed around Harry Potter, mainly towards the Hogwarts side of things. You interact with the world however you want, but for the most part, there's not really any missions. There's small tasks to complete, but there's not really any story, despite there being like kind of actually decent cutscenes for the time. But I see this game being designed exclusively for children. I think it'd be really hard to have a fun time with this as an adult or even a teen for that matter. Let me disclaim, I think Legos are very fun, although insanely overpriced for whatever reason now. But I'm just saying this whole digital experience does not seem very thrilling or just fun whatsoever. Honestly, teeters on the lines of like educational game, just kind of like letting your brain kind of get exercised as like a 3-year-old. I would skip this one. This is a D tier.
Wingardium Leviosa.
All right, bear with me for a second because I got to explain a few things as we venture into this whole licensed movie tie-in video game segment. We've got a lot to go through and a lot of different versions of games to go through. For the first two games, being Philosopher's Stone and Chamber of Secrets, each game got 5 different versions, all different from each other. Different dev team, different story, different gameplay. They're very vastly different from each other. And for the sake of simplicity for this video, we are only going to be talking about the PC and console versions, no handhelds. So that Harry Potter RPG that you guys love for the Game Boy will not be mentioned here. And to begin with, we have the Philosopher's Stone on the PS1, and this game would have the core elements of all the first 2 movie tie-in games that were developed somewhat adjacent to the movies, and in turn you have some loose artwork from said movies, but sporting different voice actors and reimagining of some scenes and events compared to the movies, which was very common for the abundant movie tie-in games at the time. The gameplay elements that would be common throughout the first 2 movie games, spanning the next 6 games we're going to talk about, are collectible wizard cards, Birdie Bot's every flavor beans being a loose currency for the game, attending classes to learn new spells, at least some type of Quidditch segments, and side quests throughout as well. Alright, enough housekeeping, let's actually dive into Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone for the PlayStation 1. Or Sorcerers, does somebody want to like settle this debate real quick for me? Why the fuck does America call it Sorcerer's Stone? Regardless of how many Harry Potter games you've played, if you're a remote gamer or just into meme culture at all, there's no way that PS1 Hagrid skipped your radar. Seeing this in the flesh was pretty cool, not gonna lie. The game loosely follows the movie, but more so just kind of takes you through what it's like to attend Hogwarts as the movie slowly unfolds itself in the background. As stated before, you learn new spells through a rhythm-like minigame at each class, and with these spells, you unlock new parts of the castle to complete the game, and you don't have as much freedom as you think with these spells. For example, you don't equip the spells manually, you just use your action button, and then whatever you're interacting with, it'll use the respected spell that you're supposed to be using for it, which definitely limits the gameplay as far as solving puzzles and creativity with the puzzles, I guess. But I don't find that to be an issue. These games are clearly designed for children, or at the very least, very casual gamers, so it's going to be very simple, and I don't mind that. But whenever you learn a new spell, you go through a dungeon inside the classroom showcasing this newly learned spell, kind of as a trial. Then you get judged based off your performance that determine your score for the ongoing House Cup for Harry's first year at Hogwarts, which we'll go ahead and mention this is a reoccurring thing throughout the first 3 movie games, and they seem pretty irrelevant if I'm being honest. It's more so just kind of a background thing, like to give each playthrough a unique feel, I guess. Like I think if you're dead last in the House Cup, which should honestly be really hard to do, you'd have to like throw this game to not win the House Cup. I don't think it's going to limit you from getting the ending or completing the game or progressing the game whatsoever. I guess it's just kind of more of like a fan service thing. I will say the Quidditch in this game seems like a little bit of an afterthought. You're basically just flying through rings in different segments, and that's about it. I will say it's a pretty cool gesture that they've included in the game, but it's definitely not a core fundamental aspect of it. There's tons of exploring to be done, and although the map isn't super dense or have too much going on, you can still explore the castle grounds and Hogwarts itself pretty thoroughly, which although it's empty, it's still kind of fun just being like, oh, that's Hagrid's hut, or you know, just pointing out little POIs and details from the movies. But for a PS1 game, I think this game's pretty solid. It's sort of the jack of all trades when it comes to gameplay. I would call it maybe a mesh between Zelda and I guess like an action adventure game, but for being honest, it's not like excelling in either one of those, but it does both of them okay. And for a movie tie-in game, that's more than we can ask for. I want to applaud this game for having a free look option for the camera that makes the game not feel super clunky or hard to go back to. And that's kind of like the arch nemesis of the PlayStation 1 being clunky camera controls, and the fact this game doesn't have that is a very nice plus. The levels are diverse enough to keep you entertained throughout its entirety as well, so it doesn't feel like a slow burn. And the absolute cherry on top for this game is that Jeremy Soule did the soundtrack for the entire game. As a matter of fact, basically every Harry Potter movie tie-in game. And if you don't know who that is, he did the Elder Scrolls soundtrack, so it's very fitting. And when you find that out, it kind of makes sense. It kind of has this like ambiance of winter Nordic vibe, I guess. This game is a beat here.
Wingardium Leviosa.
Onto the Sorcerer's Stone for the PC. This one is still very different than the PS1 version, but of all the different generational and platform differences for the first three movie games, Philosopher's Stone for the PC and PS1 have the most similarities. You have a good bit of reused levels or ideas of levels, but I think the PC version of the Sorcerer's Stone is all around the best way to experience the first movie in a video game. Now let's go ahead and knock out a couple of those differences in the way the game's played first. Since you're using a mouse and keyboard, the camera is no problem since you have full mouse movement to control your camera, and although we established the PS1 camera was fine, having like an even better version of that is always going to be a plus. You have pretty solid graphics, and despite this game being really easy to find, you have to jump through some hoops to get it to run on new hardware, but when you do get it running, it's mega upscaled and it just looks really good. I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty impressed with how good you can make this game look for being like 25 years old almost. This version of the game takes a much more linear way of progressing things with pretty much no open world to explore like you did on the PS1. And hot take, I actually prefer it this way because the levels you play feel much more thorough than they were in the PS1. Like in the PS1, I feel like they focused way too much on just creating Hogwarts, whereas this, you still have Hogwarts, maybe not as big in the PS1, but the levels you're actually playing and the gameplay you're experiencing is just much more thorough. One of my favorite parts in this game is when you have to sneak past Filch. It is actually an ass-clenching experience, and if I was a kid and I had played this, I know I would be tweaking. You do get a Filch sequence in the PS1, and I think actually, if I remember correctly, in the few games we're about to talk to as well, but this one definitely did it the best. The Quidditch also felt better in this game too. I never found it exhilarating exactly, but a little more precise since you have that full mouse movement. And since these games were developed alongside the movies, I'm not sure how they decided to add things that weren't in the movie or take things out that were. But toward the end of the trials, before you make it to Voldemort, it involves this potions memory minigame. And if you choose the wrong one, Harry chugs it and then just like fucking dies.
But then I could be wrong. Oh no! Ow!
Overall, I think this is a better game and very enjoyable for Harry Potter fans, but still gives actual gamers a good time. I was a really big fan of the linear level design, but still also somehow keeping those gameplay elements of the PS1 version intact, very much so. But I firmly believe this is the best way to experience the first Harry Potter game, and this is an A tier.
Wingardium Leviosa.
Alright, now we're on to Chamber of Secrets for the PS2. And I know what you're thinking, I said there was 3 versions of the Sorcerer's Stone, and yes, there are, but that wouldn't come until a little bit later for whatever reason, and that reason's probably going to piss you off, but it's going to be a minute before we talk about that. But I like to move chronologically for these videos, so we're going to talk about the next one, which is Chamber of Secrets for the PlayStation 2. What was said about the Sorcerer's Stone PS1 version can also be said about the Chamber of Secrets PS1 version. Borrowing and reusing basically every asset imaginable, the game follows a near identical gameplay loop, just following the events of the second movie. Learn spells with the same minigame, explore Hogwarts, collect wizard cards, rinse and repeat. And it sounds like I'm complaining, but I actually find no problem with this because we already established the PS1 gameplay loop was pretty solid. However, they did introduce one new gameplay feature, being duels. Since that was introduced in this movie as well, it kind of makes sense, and it's nothing crazy, but it's fun enough to be like, oh, this is a cool new feature. But I will say, this game has probably one of the most ridiculous segments in all the games we're about to talk about. It's a pretty common thing where video games don't have enough substance to create levels, so they'll exaggerate parts of a movie that really weren't that big into a whole-blown level, and we got something fucking crazy for Chamber of Secrets PS1. That being, when Malfoy calls Hermione a mudblood and casts a slug spell that backfires on him, you're sent on a chase sequence level where Ron is constantly throwing up, and you have to avoid his slug barf stains while staying close to him to not lose him. This is the most Shrek-ass bullshit sequence I've ever played in a video game, and I am so down for this. And if that wasn't enough, after that, once you make it to Hagrid's hut, he's making him, you know, he gives him the potion over to make him not sick anymore, and you play this other mini game where he's throwing up slugs, and you have to take the cauldron and catch the slugs and dump them out and rinse and repeat until you beat the time limit. It's funny to think that in this 4, maybe 5-hour game, 30 minutes of it is spent on the Ron slug barf arc is just hilarious. Outside of that, the only downfall this game has is its final boss being a little underwhelming, especially compared to the rest of the game. I don't know what it is, but the basilisk fight is one of my personal favorite scenes in all of Harry Potter, and this just felt, I don't know, half-assed. It's actually like, I would call it like the worst level in the game. But long story short, if you like Sorcerer's Stone for the PS1, you're gonna like Chamber of Secrets for the PS1. This is getting the same exact ranking, A, B tier.
Wingardium Leviosa.
On to the PC version of Chamber of Secrets, where they took the exact same format of the PC version of Sorcerer's Stone and said, again. Except this time around, I would say they threw in enough changes and upgrades to the gameplay that this is a significant increase in quality. The Quidditch and flying segments really stood out to me. You could kick the shit out of your opposition, which was a nice little change, and then they kind of go all limp like a fucking sloth. Also, the way you learn spells changed from a tracing game that was bugged on newer hardware to now more of a rhythm game. Similar to the PS1 version, this game also implemented dueling, which had even more depth on the PC and gave you a good amount of options for your moves and actions. But above all, like the PC version of Sorcerer's Stone, the Chamber of Secrets PC version has the best dungeons in all the movie tie-in games. Not only from the classroom where you learn the new spells, but every single level in this game is just solid, and there's rarely a dull moment. And also, unlike the PS1 version, the final level in this game is fun too. I really enjoyed Chamber of Secrets PC, and it is a perfect example of taking an already successful format and just upgrading it and making it better. Basically, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom. A completely irrelevant nitpick here, but getting this game to run on modern hardware was actually such a pain in the ass. You're gonna have to do some homework and some file manipulation. I'll just leave it at that. But this is the best movie tie-in video game, and this gets a S ranking for the video.
Wingardium Leviosa.
And for the last edition of Chamber of Secrets, we got the PS2 version. Now, apparently this is a lot of people's favorite Harry Potter game, I've come to realize, and it makes a lot of sense. You have the most immersive and open world version of Hogwarts so far, actual side quests, equipable spells that you can cast at any time, on top of there being more spells than any other game we've talked about, but above all, Minecraft Creative Mode Grass. The game took elements from the PC version and PS1 version, but I think it's different enough to stand out on its own more than those versions together. As stated before, you're given a much more open world experience with this whole day and night cycle, where you wake up, attend your classes, or do whatever tasks you have to do for the day, sometimes in any order, which is kind of cool. Then once everything's finished, you can open the pause menu and end the day, or explore Hogwarts to your leisure and find other secrets and side quests. But once you end this day, then you progress the story, rinse and repeat. Sometimes there'll be a little night cycle, you do some mischievous things and sneak around the castle and whatnot, which is pretty cool because the game actually directly incentivizes or tells you, hey, you don't have to progress the story right now, you can still do random shit around Hogwarts if you want. I want to highlight the manual equipping of the spells does a lot for the gameplay and how solving puzzles and combat works. As I mentioned before it was just you press the interact button and you cast whatever spell on whatever creature or whatever object you need to cast the spell on, and you didn't have to think about it, it would just do it for you. Whatever spell you needed, that's the one that was going to be cast. And I have to equip those spells manually and kind of think, oh, what spell do I need here? And oh, it's this kind of enemy, I know I need to, you know, flip it over on its back and then hit it with a fire spell, whatever it may be. And you can even equip your broom to one of these slots and fly around Hogwarts. I mean, this is kind of everyone's dream at the time. Pretty badass. Already talked about the PS1 versions of these games, already had a pretty solid experience when it comes to exploring Hogwarts. Dueling is here, and it's basically like playing Wii Tennis. I didn't find it super interesting, especially compared to the PC version. And Snape looks like Lord Farquaad. But maybe this is me being weird. I do want to nitpick that the camera kind of felt f***y in this game. Like, that free camera in the PS1 version was really good. I don't know how they kind of backtracked on the PS2, because the PS2 was the era, and like GameCube and whatnot is when I feel like camera problems with video games was solved. Don't know how that happened, but whatever. This is just a great game nonetheless for Harry Potter fans, and I see why it's a lot of people's fan favorite. However, I'm willing to bet a lot of people never got to experience the Chamber of Secrets for the PC, hence why I'm ranking it below it. It still gets an A tier.
Wingardium Leviosa.
A lot of people really like this PS2 Quidditch standalone game, but I don't know. I think I'm going to piss a lot of people off with this one. This game was always in the rotation at the neighbor's house growing up. Coming back to this, it really just didn't hit the same. I think there's one big glaring issue with it, and that's that the gameplay is very exploitable. The AI is extremely predictable and easy, but above all, the golden snitch is just insanely overpowered and the only way to win the game. So basically, you gotta have a mid performance throughout the actual match, but then as long as you catch the snitch, you're pretty much good. There is a good amount of content for this game, like tons of stadiums and teams to play as, way beyond Hogwarts, which is really cool. But I think this game focused heavily on replayability, and I don't think it hit hard in that regard. It's probably much more enjoyable with a friend because that's the way I played it growing up, but since I played this by myself, I probably had a scuffed experience. Harry Potter Quidditch World Cup gets a C tier.
Wingardium Leviosa.
Finally, Sorcerer's Stone for the PS2. Time for a history lesson and trigger warning. This is like pretty fucking bad. EA Masterclass inbound. So after the Chamber of Secrets games, including the PS2 version, were released in 2002, the next year, Harry Potter saw no movie release. And in turn, EA had no game lined up for 2003, since Prisoner of Azkaban wouldn't hit theaters until 2004. So to fill this dead time, aka their wallets, a PS2 version of the Sorcerer's Stone was released in the gap year. So what, they decided to retroactively go back and make a video game based off of the first movie on the kick-ass PS2. What's the problem? But let me just tell you my experience with this real quick. Not knowing of the release dates after the fact, I played the PS2 version of Sorcerer's Stone as my very first game for this video. And I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty impressed with this game. You would learn new spells, you manually equip those spells, use them together, you explore Hogwarts, you have a day and night cycle, etc, etc. When I got around to playing the Chamber of Secrets for PS2, I noticed something. These games were very, very similar. And not in just the way the game was played. These are the same fucking game. So I'm playing Chamber of Secrets to the PS2 and I'm cursing it. I'm like, wow, this is just a copycat game from the game last year, not knowing that Sorcerer's Stone came after. And that's when I saw Sorcerer's Stone for PS2 for what it was. The start of the EA greed fest that we know today. FIFA Ultimate Team, Star Wars Battlefront 2 loot crates, and pay-to-win microtransactions were born the same day that Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone for the PS2 was released. And look, I know it probably sounds like an exaggeration, but I'm saying they reused assets for this game. I mean like straight up dungeons and levels, and it is actually copy-paste. A true copy-paste experience. Down to the Minecraft creative mode grass. On top of that, there's just straight up less content, and the real nail in the coffin is that this game only has 5 learnable spells, where Chamber of Secrets had 10. Yeah, normally it's like the other way around. The game that comes after doubles the amount of spells, but the game that came after halved the amount of spells in the game, which in turn just makes the game just worse. I mean, straight up a worse experience. I mean, bro, the troll in the bathroom makes the fucking stock grizzly bear sound effect. All right, enough bitching and moaning. It's like not actually a bad game, but for context and just when you really crack the code behind this game, it leaves a really big sour taste in your mouth. Also, randomly, this game is super rare. I think it had a very limited run. And they did very limited marketing for it. I think since it was a dead year for the Harry Potter movie, they just decided to not really advertise this, so it just felt like a throwaway game basically, and it could have been really good. They could have made a very like unforgettable gem here, and to some maybe it is, but not for me. I can't give this game anything higher than a C tier.
Wingardium Leviosa.
What many people see as the best movie in the franchise. By the way, stick around for my speed ranking at the very end of all the Harry Potter movies. This game also got multiple versions, this time only being 2 since the PS1 was now outdated at this time. We'll go ahead and talk about the PS2 version first. Similar loop as Chamber of Secrets for the PS2 going on here, only there's one massive change. That being the use of multiple characters. This is kind of one of those moments where you think, oh, how did we not have this earlier before? You know, there's 3 core characters in the movies. Why can't we play as multiple of them? And Prisoner of Azkaban introduced that gameplay element, and it worked very, very well. You now limit what spell each character can learn and make solving dungeons even more fun. Ron is sort of the combat guy, Harry is the jack of all trades, and then if you've ever played any Pokemon game, Hermione's basically just like the HM slave. On top of each character having their own spells and uses, there are multiple times where you get separated or working as a duo to get things done with their respective moveset, which is really clever. The day and night cycle also makes a return, but there are a handful of differences still with how this game is played aside from the multiple characters. Let's just go ahead and rip this band-aid off. There was no Quidditch in this game, which was kind of a bummer. For the sake of continuity, I know that in the movie, Quidditch was not really a big part of Prisoner of Azkaban. I guess he gets attacked by the Dementor while he's on the pitch, but other than that, I guess they didn't want to fit it into the game. In place, you do get to ride Buckbeat, which Pretty fucking cool. Again, another thing that's just like every Harry Potter's wet dream. The Hogwarts map is also completely reworked, and I think it's for the better. The camera controls are much better with this L2 camera feedback thing, and Snape got upgraded from Lord Farquaad to Marilyn fucking Manson. This game was pretty fun and makes you think why they didn't experiment with multiple characters sooner, because it works so well. Similar to Chamber of Secrets of the PS1, I do think the last 20 minutes of gameplay of this game could have been a little more fleshed out. Like, they didn't really do anything with the whole time travel thing. It was more so just you fight the Dementors and then you fight them again from behind. It's kind of all it really is. Like, there's basically no involvement of the werewolves whatsoever, which is like everyone's favorite part of this movie, at least mine. But whatever, this game's still an A tier, arguably the best console version of a movie tie-in game.
Wingardium Leviosa.
Onto the PC version of Prisoner of Azkaban, which also did some of the experimental changes from its PC predecessors. The character change thing is here, but it's much different. It's more like you just have segments where you play as a different character. There's no manual switching between them or any type of like, you never really play as multiple characters at once like you did in the first one. It's more so like, oh, the game's gonna automatically switch you to a character and they have specific spells. But since this is the PC version, there's still no equipable spells. You're just gonna click on whatever you're gonna click on and it's gonna cast a spell that you need to cast. And if you've noticed, the PC versions I've talked about, I've always praised the dungeon design being really fun and kind of maybe not challenging, but just creative. But this game, oh my gosh, is so easy. Not only easy, but very short. I think I beat this game in like 2.5 hours. When a game is easy, usually it's short because you can fly through it, but I was doing a good bit of poking around, but I was just like, oh, this, like, we're at the end of the movie now. I guess we're done. I will say there are some fun sections. Like in some of the Hermione segments, you have this animal casting spell where you to take on the form of a dragon or bunny. You also get a couple of Super Mario 64 slider segments when you're playing as Harry, which felt random. This is just a mediocre game. I hate to say, I really liked the PC versions of these games, arguably more than the console versions. I really wanted to put it higher on the list, but it's just not that fun. It's uninspiring and also lacks from a pretty pathetic ending compared to the movie. As far as the gameplay goes, this is a C tier.
Wingardium Leviosa.
Goblet of Fire is the movie that marked the darker story hiding inside the Harry Potter universe. And this also got a movie tie-in game that changed the formula pretty dramatically, and not for the better. Luckily, we only have to talk about one version of this game because now we're getting just one version per game entry. But Goblet of Fire decided to take a more traditional PS2 era approach with the action and adventure linear mission format, which I think was a bold decision since the previous 3 games in each version within said games was the same formula that had been working out very well this far. Goblet of Fire did introduce 3-player co-op between Ron, Hermione, and Harry, which is another element you could argue took a little long to see the light of day. But it doesn't matter because this game fucking sucks. The level design, combat, spell casting, and the lack of puzzles results in an uninspired, boring experience. I think this format could have worked if the gameplay was actually fun, but it's not. It's insanely repetitive. It gets old very, very fast. If that wasn't bad enough, the worst element about this game is that if you want to complete the main story, you have to go back and play the same linear levels over and over again until you get enough of these shields that then unlock a new level. If you ever played Shadow the Hedgehog, it kind of reminds me of that, like, except you're not fucking like killing cops. But yeah, replaying already boring linear style levels to get the true end or like progress this game at all is just not a good design. I actually remember getting this game for Christmas and playing with my 2 older sisters, which worked out very well because it's a 3-player co-op game and us 3 would just play it. And we hit a part where like, oh, we have to replay this bullshit ass level to get the next level. No, thank you. Oddly enough, I do think we ended up finishing it, which cannot be said for this playthrough. I'm sorry. I love you guys, but not enough to play through Goblet of Fire in its entirety. It gets the first F tier for the video.
Wingardium Leviosa.
For Order of the Phoenix, my 360 copy didn't get the mail because there was some snowstorms and stuff, so I had to play the PS2 version, which is a much worse way to experience this game, graphically speaking, but as far as I'm concerned, it is the same game, has the same levels and same experience, minus the aesthetic. Changing the formula back to what was liked about the first 3 games, you start off as Sirius Black teaches you some of the core spells of the game, which are used by rotating your wrist with the analog stick, which can result in Harry's hand looking the same as when Professor Lockhart tried to heal his wrist. A few story quests kick things off as you are cut loose to explore Hogwarts in its entirety as you please. From here, you're given the task to assemble Dumbledore's army in the Room of Requirement by locating and recruiting students using the Marauders map. And it's not like 1 or 2 students, it's like fucking 25, I think. And the way you do this is using that Marauders map like I talked about, and you walk around Hogwarts talking to someone. They're going to bitch and moan about how they're late for their class or someone's bullying them. You're going to help them out, and then they're going to be part of Dumbledore's army. And you rinse and repeat 25 times until you unlock the end of the game. 80% of this game is a fetch quest around Hogwarts, which again, I know people fucking like walking around Hogwarts, but it gets old fast, man. Anyways, once you do all the fetch quests for like, it's like 2 or 3 hours worth of content and doing random bullshit chores. Honestly, they're chores around Hogwarts. Then the end game starts and you play out the last 30 minutes of the movie. And that's the game. That's the whole fucking game. To be honest, I think Order of the Phoenix already isn't exactly super exciting to begin with as a movie, and there's not really much content going on enough to facilitate a video game. So that's why I think they took this whole fetch quest route. I don't think they had really much option, but you know, you gotta make that money somehow. In their defense, Hogwarts, it looks amazing, even on this bullshit ass PS2 I was playing it on, but it just feels so uninspired. Just because you can do and explore, it's just still very, very empty. One more thing, there's not a single loading screen through Hogwarts. That is a amazing feat they pulled off. I don't know how they did that. Even on this PS2 version, that is just insane to me, actually. But there's still nothing to do in this game. It's a D tier.
Wingardium Leviosa.
The Half-Blood Prince made a bold decision to reuse a lot of the same assets from the Order of the Phoenix video game. But this time they did it right. Or maybe just less wrong. We have what looks like to be the same map from Order of the Phoenix on top of the same engine from what I can tell. But now we have actual levels and missions that feel like they have at least a little bit of thought put into them instead of mindlessly walking around the castle begging people to join your little army. With this comes a lot more action and combat segments. And although it's not very like super fun, it's actually very exploitable if you get your timing down. It's at least more entertaining than what was going on in Order of the Phoenix. And it uses that same right stick mechanic where you kind of just go crazy with your wrist, and I don't know. You just use the same 2 spells and you're good. But people are going to hate me for this, but I think this game has a really fun potion minigame, which is like probably 35% of this entire game is just mixing potions together. And it's kind of like a rhythm, but also like you got to put them in the right order and the right amount of time, and, you know, shake it before you put it in, whatever you may need to do. But it's so bullshit, but it's so fun. It definitely overstays its welcome, but it does at least get a little harder as you go on. Like, I definitely failed a couple times doing this. But then this game also has a super goofy segment, kind of like it's in the movie as well, where he drinks the liquid luck or the confidence potion, and then he's acting all goofy and just quirky and weird. But in the game, you do that, and then you get this first person segment that has this like super silly music playing. It really just gives you like Bully Maguire vibes. As stated before, the game is really easy, but at least way more dense than Order of the Phoenix. You can still explore Hogwarts, but it just feels like there's more, at least there's like conversations going on and just little secrets to explore, more so than there was in Order of the Phoenix. I really like they also added a nearly headless Nick as your GPS, which is a really tasteful decision. And the end of this game is also pretty underwhelming. It didn't feel any more difficult than the rest of the game or introduce anything new, since basically all the combat in this game relies on duels. The best way to sum this one up is it's what Order of the Phoenix should have been, but still fell short. It's a C tier.
Wingardium Leviosa.
I'm willing to bet a lot of y'all's first experience with any Lego video game was probably Lego Star Wars. And boy, do we not know how good we had it when that came out. With the smash hit that was the Lego games, a ton of IPs got the same treatment that Star Wars did, one of which being Harry Potter. And Harry Potter is actually one of those first licensed movie Lego games, and we got years 1 through 4, and later years 5 through 7, both of which I'm going to lump into this whole segment. I'll talk about them differently, but I think it's just easier to do it that way. Side note, these games are very accessible because the Harry Potter collection just released on next gen, and you can play all these games on next-gen hardware, which is pretty sick to see these games preserved still. Similar to Lego Star Wars, since this was one of the earlier licensed Lego video games, it took that non-dialogue approach. As a matter of fact, I don't think there's a single word uttered by any character in this game, and replaced it with that good old-fashioned Minecraft villager voice clip for any and all noises the characters make. And the cutscenes are summarized with funny gestures and gimmicks the characters make that somehow still summarizes what's being said or going on in the movie. And you get all sorts of funny secret interactable moments like secret cutscenes and folding this guy into the couch and it comes back up all fucked up and shit. Now, I was lucky enough to play this game growing up, and it was great, and playing again for this video, it's still great. These games stand the test of time very well. These early licensed Lego games go so hard for no reason, and Lego Harry Potter, both collections of years, is a spitting image of that. Since you play through the movies in true Lego video game fashion, you play as tons of different characters who can interact with different entities in each level. And one of the major differences that I found between Lego Harry Potter and something like Lego Star Wars or Indiana Jones, which were definitely like the rivaled Lego video games at the time, was the use of magic in its equipable slot to solve puzzles and progress each level. Yes, in Lego Star Wars, you had the Force, which, you know, lets you build things and destroy things, pull levers, whatever it may be. Then in Lego Harry Potter, you have Wingardium Leviosa, which is basically the Force, and then so many other spells to learn way later on in the game, and gives you way more interactivity with the levels. With that being said, a lot of people see years 1 through 4 as a breeze, since a good half of the game you're only using 2 or 3 spells. But once you get moving forward, the game continues to get more complex. Also, like Lego Star Wars, there are tons and tons of collectibles, secrets, characters, and Easter eggs to unlock, unlock that give this game so much replayability, especially with a friend. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think in any of the video games we've talked about so far, they've got the full licensing from John Williams, and Lego Star Wars has the full soundtrack and it fucking bangs. Nothing against Jeremy Soule, we still love you. If I had to bring this game down for any reason, it would maybe be that it's outshined by other Lego games like Lego Batman 2. I mean, you're just not competing with that fucking behemoth. And I could see some newer players or maybe people who don't really care about Harry Potter not finding it super interesting, even though I think it is outside of being a Harry Potter fan. It's just a good Lego game and Lego experience. This is a quintessential Lego game, and especially if you're a fan of the movies or a brickhead, you gotta play this. It's an S tier.
Wingardium Leviosa.
Just like the movies, Deathly Hallows also got 2 separate video games to cash in on the Harry Potter craze, sporting yet another shift in the gameplay formula, this time being a fucking third-person shooter. And not like Uncharted or Gears of War, this is like 50 Cent Bulletproof. With probably the most repetitive gameplay on this entire list, you're seeing going around killing everything that stands in your way in their linear style missions that are dull. And kind of like Order of the Phoenix, since this movie doesn't really have a lot of action, which doesn't make it a bad movie, is they have to put a bunch of filler levels. Like there's this one where you're at a fucking power plant just saving muggles. I don't know. Another one where you're like creeping past a dragon. It was just weird. It did not fit the vibe at all. It fell so flat. To be fair, I know that in the movies, this is kind of where they were like their wands turned into guns. They were shooting, you know, stupefy, whatever, spells at each other. I guess they were like, oh, we got to make a third-person shooter out of this because that's what people like. The game just does not feel well. Outside of the bold decision to go third-person shooter vibes on this game, it just doesn't control well. It's not fun. It's insanely repetitive. I've already said all these things, but I just want to say them one more time. It's the worst game in the entire franchise. F-.
Wingardium Leviosa.
Deathly Hallows Part 2, gonna come in as a shocker, also was a third-person shooter. They probably developed these games right after each other, and I will say Part 2 got a pretty significant increase in the controls and just responsiveness to everything. So I guess that was nice. It was definitely more playable than the first one. Deathly Hallows Part 2 is basically just the Battle of Hogwarts, so with that, you got a lot of opportunity for a bunch of different levels. And there were some that were actually kind of fun. I know when you're McGonagall on the bridge and you get to kill all the trolls and stuff, that was okay, just because it's like, oh, this is kind of cool. The game is pretty. It's a beautiful game, so there's that. There's this part where when you and Hermione go to the Chamber of Secrets, you're just fending off spiders for like, I'm not joking, it was like 30 minutes in like a 3-hour game of just in the Chamber of Secrets fending off spiders, and Ron's fucking bitching and moaning the whole time.
Why spiders? Why couldn't it be follow the butterflies?
It is cool that the game lets you play as a bunch of different characters. For example, you get to play as Mrs. Weasley and duel Bellatrix Lestrange and kill her. Kind of cool. But overall, this game does feel like a chore to get through. It's not fun. I don't recommend it. The whole third-person shooter thing just, I don't know why they did this. It does get a pretty kick-ass end credit scene that shows you like a montage of all the Harry Potter games, so that was pretty touching and very fitting for the last game in the franchise of the movies, that is. Still gets an F tier, though.
Wingardium Leviosa.
The following year, after Deathly Hallows Part 2 had been released, one last loose movie tie-in spin-off game was released, and that is Harry Potter for the KINECT. The game, as the title suggests, uses the KINECT accessory for the 360 as you play through missions that play more like mini-games that follow the events of the movies. And I don't think anyone was really ever begging for a KINECT motion control exclusive Harry Potter game. I know the Half-Blood Prince and I think Order of the Phoenix Wii versions had motion controls with the Wii, as you could cast spells, which also sounds like a fucking nightmare. And also, to be fair, I think both Deathly Hallows 1 and 2 supported KINECT controls. I think you could like say things or you know, use the mic and it would do stuff. Also, don't give a about that. But anyways, you play through unresponsive levels until your copy you bought off of eBay wants to stop working because it's scratched. Yeah, that's happened to me, so I didn't really get to experience this game as much as I wanted to, or didn't want to, rather. Also, my setup for KINECT or motion controls in my game room is just not really fleshed out, so I was playing on the couch and it just was not working well. It was not fun. It was not fun at all. But I'm gonna go on a limb here and say I didn't really miss out on much here. This is an F tier game.
Wingardium Leviosa.
Hogwarts Legacy was a really big deal when it was announced. It was the game you always wanted as a fan of the wizarding world, taking you inside the perspective of a student at Hogwarts with a full-scale open world to explore and an original and lengthy story to unveil with minimum connection to the story we already know. The expectations and anticipation for this game was at an all-time high. Developed by Portkey Games, a dev team created for the sole purpose of making games within the Harry Potter universe, this game was a smash hit. And I had never played it until this video. That's kind of like the reason I wanted to make this video, is because I wanted an excuse to play Hogwarts Legacy. Legacy. I loaded this game up to discover a pretty in-depth character creator before I was absolutely bombarded with claiming rewards for the special edition I bought, I guess. Holy shit, this took way longer than it needed to be. Like, bro, just like claim all. Come on, what the fuck is this?
Bro, I fucking get it. I got a bunch of shit for buying this game.
Anyways, you play as a 5th year who's a 1st year, and your journey to Hogwarts gets ambushed by a dragon, and you then discover a secret book that unveils ancient magic. And without spoiling too much, that's basically how the main quest goes. You kind of just explore more about this ancient magic that you're able to wield. As someone who's never read the Harry Potter books, I don't know much about the deep lore or basically anything that's not in the movies, so I enjoyed this story a lot. Can't say how that is for people who have actually read the books or appreciate the lore a little bit more, but I thought it was pretty interesting. Anyways, you attend your classes, learn new spells, complete assignments to learn even more spells as this main quest is unfolding in the background. But in between the main quests, you're given so many side quests and places to explore at your leisure. And what I want to highlight about this game first before we get into anything else is its pacing. I'm not gonna lie, it's a little bit of a slow burn to get started. Definitely not boring by any means. I just think they really want to make sure you know what you're doing before you're completely cut loose. With this, you're given elements that you would normally think would be at the start of the game way later on. For example, I didn't unlock the ability to put skill points into things until it was probably close to like 6 or 7 hours. Something you think it would be at the very start of the game is unlocked so later on, because I think, again, they kind of hold your hand a little bit too much, but I think it's because the audience of this game is probably like 8 or 38, if I had to guess. Anyways, a few hours after that, then you unlock maybe like the Room of Requirement, which is a whole game within the game. A few hours later, maybe you get your broom. Maybe 10 hours later, you can add beasts to your vivarium and have a whole fucking Chow Garden. If you know, you know. Which I really like, because the more you give to this game, the more you get from it. With this, the pacing makes you feel like you never run out of things to do, and that's pretty true for the most part. The gameplay or loose format for this game is kind of like Dark Souls combat on baby mode, and then Far Cry exploration with a sprinkle of like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom throughout the entire game. You learn so many spells in this game, and although a lot of them are pretty useless, there's still enough diversity to have a spell bar pre-made for whatever you're up against. And if you learn to swap through those presets, you can go fucking sweat Team 6 in this game and just be unstoppable and basically never have a cooldown. Throw in the use of potions and combat plants, and you can add some flair to your playstyle and look really cool. Which the game already gives you a lot of ways to handle combat in this game, but I found abusing the unforgivable spells to be super overpowered and the way I played this game. And to be fair, I think this game is designed to have the unforgivables be overpowered. But as alluded to earlier, the open world gives you so many places to explore with plenty of tasks for completionists. The Merlin Trials, Every Witch Beast, room upgrades, potion recipes, conjurations for the Room of Requirement, and exclusive gear. The gear system I felt like could have been a little better. My thing with it was I would get a new piece of gear that would be like the best in my inventory. I'd equip it, and then like an hour or two later, I would find something better, and I felt like I never had the same piece of gear for longer than 2 hours, even after I would upgrade it. So when new gear is constantly getting power crept, it kind of felt hard to like get attached to gear. Like, oh, this is like my helmet that I really like, and it's super good and has a super unique attribute. There's really not that in this game. I will say, to kind of like combat this, is that they let you change the appearance of any gear to any gear you've already got. So even if you have a horrendous hat or something, it can look like the most badass helmet you've ever had or something like that. But we can circle back to the RPG elements or lack thereof in this game. Not that every game in the world needs to have RPG elements, but this one kind of, it's a very baby RPG game, if you want to call it that. Can't really have like a build. It's just like you just basically are constantly upgrading your overall character and not really focusing into one play style. For example, I barely did any stealth in this game, and there's a whole segment in the skill tree that's all about stealth, and I just didn't touch that whatsoever. And as far as the decision making, for the most part, it's good or bad with no real in between. That being said, I did get put into Slytherin and the Sorting Hat, and I embraced that. I was just an absolute fucker in this game, like an absolute dickhead. One girl was like, oh, my family heirloom's over there, will you go grab it? I'm like, sure, yeah, I'm grabbing it, and then I'm gonna come back to you and tell you that I'm fucking keeping it.
What? But you can't. It doesn't belong to you.
Finders keepers, Grace.
I felt like they would kind of Disney-fy this game a little bit and like not let you be mean, but you can definitely be mean in this game and evil. That being said, there is 3 different types of endings in this game: the good, the bad, and the true. So, you know, not much really like diversity with that. Not every game needs to have a bajillion endings and a bajillion decisions to make, but I'm just saying, in comparison to people who are expecting some hardcore fucking Baldur's Gate experience, you're not going to get that from this, and that's fine. The story is interesting, but I was more compelled about the surrounding stories and side quests. Without spoiling anything, you buy a store later in one of the side quests, and you get a pretty interesting quest to go along with that. I'll leave it at that. There are a lot of filler ones, like, you know, just little kids around Hogwarts, like, this person's bullying me, go talk to him, or, you know, just really minuscule things like that. There's a lot of filler, but there's enough depth in the more grandiose side quests to keep it interesting. One last noteworthy piece of information is that Portkey handed over the keys to their community and let them go balls to the walls with the mods in this game. So much so that they have a Skyrim Anniversary Edition menu option to just browse mods and install them right then and there with no third party. You know, you don't gotta go to Nexus Mods or even the Steam Workshop. It's even easier than that in this, which is really cool. I like to keep that separate from the ranking, but I definitely just have to give it a shout here. It's pretty insane how easy it is to do it on this game and how, like, many there are to choose from. It's pretty overwhelming, but this was a phenomenal game. I enjoyed it way more than I thought I would, even outside of being a very casual Harry Potter fan. This was a very fun time as someone who loves just good video games. I'm stoked for the confirmed sequel, and as of me recording this game is free on Epic Games. If you have a computer, there's basically no reason to be playing this game, or at least have it in your library. And if Portkey Games can keep this fire going, Harry Potter games have a bright future. This is the S+ ranking for the video. This is the best game we've talked about, and I honestly, it's not even close. There's honestly probably like even a space between the S and S+ between Hogwarts Legacy and the games below it. Before we get into the very last game for this video, I want to share with you my ranking of all the Harry Potter movies. At dead last, Order of the Phoenix. This movie is just boring. However, Umbridge is an amazingly written character and portrayed very well. Number 7, Deathly Hallows Part 1. Just a boring movie, and I don't think these movies needed to be 2 parts. Side note, every movie we're about to talk about I think is way better than the 2 we just talked about. At 6, Goblet of Fire. Very fun movie with the Wizard's Cup in the games and a pivotal moment where the franchise gets dark. Sorcerer's Stone is at number 5. Insane nostalgia behind this movie, and it does a great job setting up the wizarding world. Chamber of Secrets is my number 4. I think a lot of people hate this one, but I enjoyed the insight from Tom Riddle that you get, and the heartwarming return of Hagrid at the end was very touching. Deathly Hallows Part 2 is my number 3. Puts a beautiful bow on the entire franchise, and even though it feels like an Avengers movie at sometimes, it's short and sweet and to the point. My runner-up is Half-Blood Prince. I don't know why, but I really like this movie, and even though it has some very quirky comedy that feels out of place, I was here for it. Amazing payoff at the end too. And at number 1, was there even doubt? It's always gonna be Prisoner of Azkaban. This movie rocks. I remember loving it when I saw it in theaters. I was like 6 years old. One of my earliest memories as a child, actually. And after rewatching these movies for this video, this one still just stands the test of time. It's fucking great. Anyways, here's the last game.
Wingardium Leviosa.
When Hogwarts Legacy came out, there was a controversial decision to leave Quidditch out of the game. Many were pissed about this choice, but Portkey Games promised that a standalone Quidditch game was in development and wasn't far away from launch. And thus, Harry Potter Quidditch Champions was born. Remember when I just said that if Portkey Games can keep this fire rolling with Hogwarts Legacy, Harry Potter games have a great future? Well, let's just say Harry Potter Quidditch Champions wasn't the best start. Unlike Quidditch World Cup, this game has a lot more depth to its gameplay, but I still don't think it's anything special. They took a cartoonish art style approach for the graphics, which I don't really understand because I think the graphic engine from Hogwarts Legacy looked amazing and would have worked well for the Quidditch game. Anyways, I wasn't sure what to feel when I was playing this game. I don't feel like I was any good at the game, but even on the base difficulty, I had no problem mollywopping the computers. Granted, the game does ask you your age upon launch of the game. Let's just say my age just wasn't an option, implying maybe I'm not supposed to be playing this game. It's pretty cool though. You can play different cups, starting in the backyard of the Burrow all the way up to the Quidditch World Cup. I just feel like this game could have been so much better. I feel like it's just also insanely outshined by Rocket League or even like Rematch. I know they're different sports, but I just really had a hard time having fun with this game. The gameplay just wasn't satisfying, which is usually with sports games, that's kind of the whole jam that you're supposed to get. It felt like an afterthought to Hogwarts Legacy, and then that afterthought was turned into a full-blown game that still remained an afterthought, or it was like treated like an afterthought in development. I think you can get this game for pretty cheap. It does feel like a cheap game, so I guess there's that. It's a C tier. Anyways, here's my final ranking of all the Harry Potter games. Let me know what you like, what you disagree with, what you do agree with. I know you hate, you're pissed about this ranking right here. Yeah, that one is driving you crazy. Hey, if you're still watching, maybe consider subscribing, because this statistic is tells me a lot of you aren't subscribed, and maybe you could change that. Want to hear me play and rank every Lord of the Rings game or every Fallout game? Click on screen now, and if you liked, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a dislike, and thank you so much for watching.